25 years ago, did you ever think that you and I would be sitting in a room like this, surrounded by display material about how we created a monument to Aboriginal men who died defending Aboriginal country?
Well, the specific situation I certainly didn't picture, but having worked with you for as long as I have, I knew something was going to come up from somewhere. And I'm pleased that this is what it is, that it's in your own home country. You know, because we've been involved in Indigenous projects right across the state of Queensland, and Torres Strait included, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's wonderful, and as I've said, you know, I'm so honoured to be part of what you've created here.
Yeah, and it was fantastic for me to be able to get you to come back to this and close the circle, because you were the one who started the circle, and it wasn't until, you know, 10 years ago after I came home that the possibility of doing something arose. And at the opening of the Gallipoli to Armistice Memorial is really the first time I'd vocalised anything about the situation, and I asked people at that opening, you know, where are the monuments to our men? You know, there's no Anzac Days for them, and that's where it started from. And it's quite amazing that in 5 years we've ended up in this space. We've ended up with a monument down in Queen's Park, and it's drawn a lot of people together.
It has, yes, and when I had the opportunity to speak at the dedication of the memorial, and looking around at the hundreds of people standing there, just amazed me that it drew that sort of interest. Yes, it began in Cherbourg. Before then, we had projects, as I said, right across Queensland, Torres Strait, and to do with tourism. And my role was to come up with a profitable tourism model for these communities who are interested in having tourism. And in most places, the theme was pretty obvious. It was palm trees, beaches, or fishing, or any rock art paintings. It was pretty clear what the core theme was going to be. When we arrived at Cherbourg, and we first walked along the street towards the council offices, we walked past a basketball court. You're laughing. We walked past a basketball court, and I looked at it, and there was broken glass all over the court. And I looked at Glen and I said, "Oh, this is going to be a challenging tourism consultancy." Glen said, "Extreme basketball?" So that was the beginning. And Cherbourg didn't have the palm trees and the beaches and the fishing. So I reflected on the fact that it was the 28 nations of southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales that formed the community of Cherbourg. The people who were dispossessed from those areas were all brought to Cherbourg. And I thought, is there a profitable tourism theme here? It isn't my job to do community consultancies. It's my job to do something that is economically profitable as well as working well for a community.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that story, I reflected on the fact that when I used to work for Kon-Tiki in Europe, we used to go to Dachau, which is the concentration camp that was under Hitler. And it is incredibly popular, and it sounds a bit crass to say it, but it's very profitable for the community, for the Dachau community. So this really, in a way, is a parallel, and we don't have that in Australia. And this was the opportunity they had a lot of infrastructure in place already from other attempts at tourism. And so this was turning the focus to the reason Cherbourg existed. And so my proposal was to create the Flame and Stone Garden, recognising the price that warriors paid back in that time. The council approved it, and I think there's 5 councils of the South Burnett, we both presented to them, and they all were supportive. It hasn't happened. It'd be good for that to happen as well.
Well, maybe we can use this memorial as a catalyst, and maybe we could go back to Cherbourg and see if we could talk to council down there to see if we can revive, you know, all that work that you did all those years ago, and maybe it's the next one.
Will you ever leave? Let me off the leash.
No, I know where you live.
Yeah, so look, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
It's great to be in your hometown.
Yeah.
And I did actually mention during my presentation, with your consent, a story that you told me when I came to Maryborough back in the day. And that was that as we were driving along, and I think it was Churchill Street, you just looked out the window and said, "Oh, my mate used to live there, and we used to play there on the footpath. I wasn't allowed in the gate."
Yeah, that's true.
And out of all of the stories I've heard across the years in Indigenous communities and about Indigenous issues, that is right at the very top of describing what it would have been like for you, and also describing how it's developed you into the person you are today, who created this particular monument, the Butchulla Warriors Memorial.
It's been an interesting journey. I'd just like to thank you for all of your support. I'd like to thank you for planting that seed in my mind all those years ago. And as I said before, your presence here and at the memorial has closed the circle for me, and I'd just like to thank you very much.
Been great, Glenn.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah, Cherbourg.